Canadian men's national team have qualified for the quarterfinals of Copa America. I brought on my colleague from One Soccer, Alexandre Gangué-Ruzic, to join me today for the match preview, and I'm very excited to do so. Haven't really talked to Alex yet about the Chile match, that ugly but comfortable performance in a 0-0 draw, which got us to the quarterfinals. So, Alex, let's begin there. Give me your quick little thoughts on that match now, and what you think about this team leading into the quarterfinals.
Job done, in it, right? Sometimes it doesn't always have to be pretty because hey, so there's some teams who maybe got knocked out and they played better than they thought they deserved. For Canada, what I liked is this was the kind of mentality they needed, is to go into these games where it's a grind, and you'll look back 10 players, could they have done more offensively? Absolutely. Is one goal in 3 games a concern? For sure. Especially the Chile match, could they've made it more comfortable so that you're not heading into the 94th minute and one slip up in the box, a penalty, a goal against, and you're out of the tournament? For sure. But I think, good teams, great teams you see in tournament football, sometimes it does come down to the wire. You just have got to get the job done and survive. And for Canada, they hadn't always shown that survival instinct. They'd play well, they'd put themselves in the game, they'd go toe-to-toe. But it was like they said after the Argentina game, they were tired of moral victories. So for them to follow up those comments of going out and beating Peru, even though if it wasn't pretty, and then going out and getting the draw they needed against Chile, I was impressed with the mentality. But of course, there's a lot where we can look at, okay, there are areas where they need to grow, they need to be better, especially if they want to head in, go deeper in this tournament. And you know what? That's what's really, they've got a bit of luck here. They've got a chance to make a run now. So I think now, as long as they can build off some of the areas where they struggled against Chile, Peru, and Argentina, well, they've got a chance now to make something special happen.
I went into the World Cup on a high. It was such a good feeling after that World Cup qualifying campaign, and I got humbled very quickly. This felt different. I wasn't feeling that great going into Copa America. What turned my thoughts around a little bit was when Jesse Marsch came in, but even so, Jesse Marsch has not been on the job very long. He was given this group of players that were not in great form right before a major tournament that we have never played in before, and he has a different philosophy than John Herman. So it was a lot of question marks. And if you would have told me, Josh, Canada will make it out of the group with Argentina, Peru, and Chile, and then they will have a quarterfinal matchup against Venezuela for the chance to play 2 more matches in this tournament, I wouldn't have believed you. I did a predictions video and I had them finishing 3rd because I think it all came a little too quickly for them. And like Alex, like you mentioned, it wasn't always pretty. All 3 games were drastically different, especially because 2 of them had red cards. But hey, back-to-back clean sheets, we'll take it. We need to figure out a way to score a little bit more goals, especially knowing how difficult it will be to break down Venezuela and then hopefully have a rematch maybe with Argentina. So Alex, going into the quarterfinals, we have no players suspended. We had 3 players that could have been, but none got a yellow card in that last match. But we do have an injury, and it is to Tajon Buchanan. Right now, we don't know exactly what the length is going to be. He went to the hospital, as Matthew Schnee reported. So we're going to build a little starting 11 here, and we're going to kind of talk about what we want to see. And now that Buchanan's not in it, it was changed a little bit. So let's go through it right here. Now, Alex and I will be the first ones to tell you 3-man midfield. We'll get into that in a sec, but I do really think that it can work here. I thought we got very fortunate to play a 2-man midfield with Eustachio and Osorio when we did, because as soon as Osorio came on in the Peru match, red card, and we played a little over 25 minutes before a red card against Chile. I don't know how those matches would have went if we played the entire match with just those 2 in the midfield. I think having Kone back in, the fact that he didn't get that second yellow and is suspended, I think is perfect, and I wanted to change up the shape. And unfortunately, despite some of the performances I've liked from Kyle Larin, the work off the ball, the hold-up play for the goal, it's simply time to put him to the bench. I don't know if Jesse Marsch will do it. Honestly, I have a feeling he'll start, because out of the 5 matches that Jesse Marsch has managed so far, David and Larin have started all 5. So the starting 11 Alex and I are creating right now, I think it's the best one, but it doesn't mean that it's the most realistic. Crepeau is the keeper. The back 4 is Johnson, Bombito, Cornelius, Davies. The 2 double pivot will be Eustachio, Kone. We're including Jonathan Osorio in the midfield as the number 10. Liam Miller will be out on the left. Richie Larea comes in for Tajon Buchanan on the right. That means Schaffelberg will be on the bench. And then, of course, Jonathan David up front. So, Alex, taking a look at that starting 11, we haven't really seen that shape yet, and we haven't seen Laird not start. Realistic or not, I really do think it could work here.
Yeah, and you know what? It is semi-realistic, and I say that just because there was about 10 minutes against France way back when. It feels like forever ago. I mean, it was almost a month ago, but Jonathan Osorio did come on and got a spell at the 10. So, or at the 9 beside David. 10, kind of take your pick. It was kind of a bit of both. So I think it is interesting that Marsh has tried it. So it's not like he'd go into a game like this having had zero sample size. Albeit, yes, it was a small sample size, but he still did try it. I think that is worth throwing out there. But yeah, I think it's tough for Kyler, no doubt. He's had a good tournament in terms of work rate, defensive effort off the ball. I think that definitely has to be noticed, especially for someone who earlier in his career, there were a lot of criticisms for him not doing that side of the game enough. But at the same time, for a Canadian team that needs goals, if you are going to play with two strikers, you need goals from them. And David, it was great to see him score against Peru and break a bit of a duck. He's got 2 in his last 10 for Canada. Kyle Larin has 1 in his last 11. So this goes back before Marsh, because Larin and David have pretty much been strapped to the hip for a while now. And I think it's something where, yes, it's great to get a work rate from Larin and David both. At the end of the day, you need your strikers to score goals, and I think there's a lot of guys you can look at who will bring work rate and maybe a bit of something different. I think that's Osorio. You're going to get work rate from him too. I'm not worried about what he could bring defensively from a bit of a higher role. Heck, he was in a pivot and survived defensively. Yeah, like we mentioned, maybe the red card was a bit of fortune, but even when it was against 11, he survived. So why not push him up the pitch? A little less defensive responsibility, drop Kone back in there, and then you get a bit of a different profile. You get someone who can maybe create more for Jonathan David. Because, look, I think the big thing with Jonathan David is he needs to get firing. He only has 3 shots in 3 games, and it's been great to see him work hard off the ball. He had an immense performance against Chile. He was very good against Peru. He's been excellent. At the end of the day, he only has 3 shots and 1 goal. He needs to be more involved in the box. And if a number 10 is the way for him to do that, then sign me up.
And I also think it's worth noting that this Venezuelan side will be very, very difficult to break down. If you watch that Mexico game, I mean, the XG, Alex told me, was 3-1. Mexico should have won that game. And this is a bad Mexican side right now. They weren't able to do it. There was obviously the penalty save in there, and Venezuela snuck through, and they've steamrolled really through this group on paper, taking 9 points from a possible 9 and now have a date with us. But maybe that's not always the case. When you look at this team, they are very good down the middle. The double pivot is, I'd say, probably one of their strongest strengths if it's not Rondon. But besides that, Alex, I'm expecting us to have a lot of the ball. I'm expecting that a number 10 will be crucial to breaking down this team. And also probably worth noting that the wingbacks, or depending what Jesse Marsh may do, wingbacks, fullbacks, Davies, Johnston, those two will probably have to get up the pitch. Are you worried at all about how difficult it is for this Canadian team to break down a low block? And do you expect them to stick to this 4-2-3-1, or, like I mentioned, maybe find a way to play with wingbacks to get them more involved?
I am worried about the low block because it's been a concern for a while now, and this goes back a decent amount where some of their best soccer football has come when they've been hitting teams on the counter. Against Argentina, they had some great chances hitting on the counter. The Peru match, there's something that told the whole story there. Canada played 30 minutes against 10 players, and Peru for the most part were on the a little more defensive. Canada had 5 shots in that game. Like, that's just, you shouldn't be getting 5. Like, Canada had 10 shots against Argentina. There is no world where you should be having just 5 shots against Peru, especially when you were down or up a player and you're going against tired Peruvian legs at the end of it. That for me really stood out. And even against Chile, like, for all the time they spent up with 10 players, they finished that game with 8 or 9 shots. Like, again, not good enough. They need to be getting more shots. They've struggled against low blocks when teams sit back and take away space. It has been an issue for them offensively. So it was 1,000% something I'm looking at with Venezuela, who are so solid. Their fullbacks aren't very aggressive. They got 2 good center backs. Their midfield pivot is excellent, super good. Can only say good things about them. They're a team that's very solid, very compact. They're going to sit back. They know those strengths and they're going to use them. They also, they don't press as much. Their wingers aren't very defensive. They make up for that with how good they are with the back 6, really, you can call it. So for Canada, they're going to have to find ways to get creative. And if that's getting the fullbacks forward, that's something to watch. If it's getting an extra midfield in there so they can kind of create triangles around that midfield pivot. Although I do know Venezuela sometimes goes for a 4-3-3. Maybe they'll do that in that case. More emphasis on Canada playing a midfield trio. Definitely all matchups that will ask questions of Jesse Marsh, just in terms of how do you get this offense going. And this low block will not offer him an easy test in terms of fixing it.
No, but it could set them up nicely, knowing that the Venezuelan side don't have an overly fast team, that high line. it gives Canada the opportunity to play with the ball. It's just like you said. I mean, we created so many chances against Argentina, couldn't score, and we created almost nothing in the last 2 matches. So I just think Jonathan Osorio could be tailor made for a match like this to try to break this team down. It's going to be ugly again. I think it's going to be low scoring. We'll give our predictions at the end. Josh is 3 for 3 right now, so not only 3 for 3 in the results, but also with the scoreline. But Alex, let's quickly go to the potential subs. Now, I'm not going to put Tejan on the list if he is. He's going to be a big option, but Jacob Schaffelberg has been a breakout star in this tournament right now. We wanted to see him start and I want to see him start just in terms of rotation, not that I want to take away his role. I expect him to start on the bench with like we said, when our starting 11, Richie Laryea comes on, but 60-minute, if it's still 0-0, which I honestly probably expect it will be, maybe the first couple players up could be Jacob Schaffelberg and Kyle Larin around the 60th, maybe coming on for a Laryea, Osorio, kind of switch up a bit if it's not working. You could also have maybe a Piet a little bit later. Kamal Miller more than likely will come on later in the match. I assume it's going to be Tanny, but we do want to hear Alex talk about Theo Bair because that could be another sneaky player. But the nice thing is, even without Tejan Buchanan, Alex, we have a lot of great options from the bench, especially Jacob Schaffelberg.
Yeah, it's something to watch because one thing, again, if there's 2 areas that I've kind of been, intrigued to see from Jesse Marsch, like there's of course been a lot of good in terms of I like the defensive posture because defense wins tournaments, and the fact that Canada's kept clean sheets in back-to-back games. Hey, if they do that again, they're at least going to make it to penalties. It's never a bad proposition, right? Worth noting for those out there that for this round, it's 90 straight to penalties. There's no 120, which benefits teams because you could put more into that 90, knowing that you don't have to think about the extra 30 after. But I've really liked the mentality under Marsch. Like this team, they just seem like mentality monsters. They've not been phased by CONMEBOL. But we've mentioned the attack. The other big area that has concerned me a bit, because I just think it's something that managers can use to their advantage, is subs. Marsch, he's not really been the most aggressive with using his subs, especially the full allotment. But even though he's kept a lot of the same guys, it's mostly been like for like. In some games he's only used 4 subs, essentially 3. Like Kamal Miller only came on late in the Chile match to kill time and shut things down at the end. Canada has depth, and also they play an intense style. It could be good to get some fresh legs. So Schaffelberg 100%. If you end up pushing him back to the bench, you want him to replicate what he's done as a super sub. Kyle Larin could benefit from a move to the bench just because you come on as a striker against tired legs. They'll be exhausted after having dealt with David for that long, for dealing with the wingers, and they look up Kyle Larin's coming in the box. That's another threat to deal with. Samuel Piet, someone to watch just because I feel like he could be looked at to come in and muck up the midfield. Again, this Venezuelan midfield is very good, and I'd say is their strength of the team. You might need a Piet to come in if, say, Akone struggles again, or if he's not at his best defensively, or if Ustako, you have to remember, has been playing some heavy minutes. If he finally starts to feel it, Piet, someone to look at. Kamal Miller, again, the fact that Marsch has been using him as a trump card off the bench, worth watching. Then up front, I think it would be interesting to throw in a Theo Bair. I just say that in the sense that I've really liked Tanny Oluwase's game off the bench in terms of bringing something different. But keep an eye for Theo Bair. Again, it's something we continue to say. That profile he brings, give him a chance. Because I think if you're a Venezuelan defense and you've dealt with 90 minutes of Lair, or say 80 minutes of David and 30 minutes of Lair, and then you look up at the end of the game and Theo Bair then comes on for the end of the game, that could be a tough proposition. So, you know what? Why not throw in that different profile, Marsch? I feel like, Bair deserves minutes in this tournament. It'd be wild if they go the whole tournament without playing.
If it's 0-0, there's a penalty shootout coming up. He's a penalty taker for his club. It's worth noting. It might not come on for David or Larin because I wouldn't take them off. But if it's the last minute, you maybe bring off a Richie Laryea if he's still on. It could work. But Alex, to end off the preview, we're gonna do predictions. And like I said, Alex has done pretty good with predictions too. But we were sharing them on One Soccer, and somehow I didn't even notice I did it. But I went 3 for 3 with the score lines and everything. So a little bit of pressure is on me, a little bit on me right now. So I'm gonna throw it out there. I'm going to say 1-0 Canada. I think that this team is going to be set up nicely. Whether Osorio starts or not, I think that the first 60, 70 minutes are going to be 0-0. I think it's going to be a lot of Canada with the ball. I don't expect them to really break down this team overly easy, but I do think at one point someone is going to find the back of the net. I think it's going to be Jonathan David, just to throw that in there. And I think we're going to squeak away with, and again, I use this word against Chile and even Peru, ugly but comfortable. I think that Venezuela will have their chances, but I think that this team, I'm backing them to keep another clean sheet, score a goal, and move on 1-0. That's my prediction. Alex, what do you got?
I like that. That's definitely hey, you're 3 for 3, so I'll support that. This one, I'm gonna go 0-0 draw. This one has all the makings of a 0-0 draw. Canada's history against low blocks. I see Venezuela, the attack they have. I think Canada with their speed, but also like Bombito and Cornelius, we talked about their speed. They're also pretty physical guys. Like I don't think they'll be sitting there looking at a Rondon being like they'll be up for that challenge, especially Bombito. We've seen him go. He's been made some physical challenges. He's off a yellow now. He won't have to worry like that, like he did against Chile. This has 0-0 written all over it. And then, of course, it goes to penalties. I'll back it. I think it's something where I like how Canada matches up against Venezuela. I think they've got some decent penalty takers in their ranks. I'll go Canada on penalties just to give you a final prediction, but 0-0 in regular.
No, okay, I like it. I was debating that as well. I don't know. I've been going with my gut, so I went with it again because I agree. I think it's not going to be a pretty match once again, but a lot of times in this competition, knockouts, it's not. So I want to hear from you guys down in the comment section. Do you think Canada will win? Do you think Venezuela will win? Give me your score predictions. If you enjoy this preview, as always, be sure to drop a like, drop a sub. We'll see you guys soon. Cheers, friends.